The year was 1948. A headline declared, Dewey beats Truman. I'm Karen Stone, and welcome to Year by Year. 48 was the year of the underdog. For one thing, New York Governor Thomas Dewey didn't beat Harry Truman in the year's presidential election, though nobody realized it until the next day. Also, a little-known test pilot, Chuck Yeager, broke the sound barrier that year, and the nation of Israel was born. In the newsreels of 1948, we'll see these stories and more, including Whitaker Chambers' pumpkin patch, and a rare look at Vivian Leigh and Laurence Olivier greeting the Queen. Now, 1948.
Hoisted into the modified bomb bay of a superfortress, the Air Force's supersonic XS-1 rocket plane is set for another assault on the sonic barrier at Muroc, California. Believed to be the first aircraft in the world to exceed the speed of sound, the XS-1 carries only limited food supplies, hence must be taken aloft for its test flight. Captain Charles Yeager climbs down into the cockpit of the rocket craft. Yeager, who has piloted the plane on all its record-breaking flights, now readies it for another crack at the wall of sound. The release mechanism is tripped, and Uncle Sam's ace in the sky drops clear. Because of security reasons, details of these flights have not been divulged. Only that the speed of sound has been exceeded many times. Vapor trails write a new chapter in the fight for aerial supremacy. Florida bathing cuties and mabs of Hollywood get together in a tropical swing and sway that sets the gables of Coral Gables a-twitter. Or is it just the white corpuscles playing tiddlywinks with the red corpuscles in my blood pressure? This music to my ears makes me weak all over. Say, what is holding me up? This next is called the What For suit. And if you want to know what fur, it's ermine for the suit and Persian for the cat. And then we have one named Most of What You See Is Mary. And even Mary sees what you see. This little tableau is dated 98 to 48. Next time Grandpop talks about the good old days, just let him do a double take of the little portion we're about to unveil. Okay, Pop. Get on your high-wheel bicycle and pedal over. Start talking about the blizzard of '88, and don't forget to bring your earmuffs. That'll be me with the spyglass. The 1948 Winter Olympics hit a new high in speed and excitement. Danger and possibly death lurk along treacherous slopes as the downhill ski experts pit their nerve against the vast alpine reaches of snow and ice. Speed, speed, and more speed. Down they come, down in a spine-tingling exhibition of sheer wizardry on skis. When they spill fast. There's little time to worry about the ever-present danger, and with knee-action skill, the slap men plummet down the tortuous run. At times, it seems impossible that they'll keep their balance, and some remarkable escapes are recorded. Here, the accent is on speed as the Winter Games draw to a gripping climax, and champions from 28 nations fight it out on the field of sport. Another skier comes to grief on the hazardous slope, and his momentum carries him for many yards. But then, he's up again and away once more, luckier than his competitor who's following him. He hits hard, and the race is over for him. Flashing across the finish line after a breakneck dash down the slope in record time with 10 points for his team is the Frenchman Henri Aurelier. He gets a well done from the onlookers who now await new thrills in the women's slalom, and this time Uncle Sam comes up with a winner. It's twist and turn between the flags with many pairs of eyes following every move. Gretchen Fraser of the American team brings joy to her teammates at the finish line as she zips across in winning time. She scores 15 points for the U.S., the most points scored by any American in the game. The city of Haifa and its harbor become the center of bitter conflict as the new Jewish state is born in the tense atmosphere of civil war. Haganah troops search for Arabs after capturing the city. Arab strong points are taken after being blasted to rubble. During the mopping up operations, Haganah forces seek out every Arab, and barricades are set up to screen those who had not already fled the city. Everyone is searched. With the relinquishing of the British mandate, Palestine is rocked by full-scale war, and both sides mobilize. Arab captives are held for evacuation to Acre. Women flee with what belongings they can carry. And as Palestine struggles for national existence, the conflict catches the inevitable innocent in its toil. Meanwhile, at Lake Success, the United Nations wrestles with the problem. Here, Sir Alexander Cadogan states Britain's unchanging stand on the mandate. Palestine's case is before the World Parliament as Arab delegates look on stonily. In a tense atmosphere, the Assembly hears a statement of momentous importance read by United States Delegate Jessup.
The United States recognizes the provisional government as the de facto authority of the new state of Israel.
With United States recognition, the new Jewish state is launched, and Zionist leader Abba Hillel Silva is congratulated by Soviet delegate Gromyko. An historic moment for Zion, which is celebrated in Washington at the office of the Jewish Agency for Palestine, as a small boy runs the flag of the new Jewish state out on the staff. After 2,000 years, a Jewish nation once again exists. And while there is a rattle of gunfire in the Holy Land, there is cheering in Washington and Hebrew dances of joy for a Jewish homeland that has been reborn. Big names draw big crowds. A gallery of 5,000 golf fans is out for the National Celebrities Golf. Golf with a capital T. Attorney General Tom Clark is sponsor of the invitation tournament. Among the spectators is Margaret Truman, herself a celebrity, out to see such celebrities as Army Chief of Staff General Bradley and Senator Taft of Ohio. The Republican contender takes a mean swing at the ball as Derbingo ducks for cover from the elements, and old man weather sinks them all. But the spectators hang on, rain or no rain, and as for the cameramen, well, they're a hardy lot. They're focused on a reigning queen, the one and only Babe Dietrichson Zaharias, again a winner. Another winner today is Dizzy Dean of baseball fame. The gallery sees Bing's ball go bong, right where he aimed it.
Still to come on Year by Year, Oscar night in Tinseltown. And what's new in 1948? In 1948, Americans were introduced to tail fins on Cadillacs, Scrabble, and LPs, long-playing records.
Hollywood turns out for the 20th annual presentation of awards by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Robert Montgomery and his family are among the celebrities, which include Marjorie Main, who won acting fame in The Egg and I. On behalf of J. Arthur Wright Productions, Gene Simmons receives Oscars for the top flight presentation of Great Expectations and Black Narcissus. Frederick March presents the prize to Loretta Young, star of The Farmer's Daughter. Miss Young is not entirely unprepared.
That's my heart. You know, up until now, presentations of the Academy Awards have been a purely spectator sport for me. However, tonight I dressed for the stage just in case.
Olivia de Havilland presents the Gold Statue, awarded the Best Film Actor of the Year to Ronald Colman for his excellent work in the Universal International picture A Double Life. Mr. Colman accepts with his usual thoughtfulness.
And I'm not forgetting the splendid cast and all the departments that gave their skill and talent to making this picture. So, to all of them especially, my deepest gratitude, and to you, ladies and gentlemen, my warmest thanks.
USS Boxer helps make history in the Pacific. And our cameraman, Joe Johnson, makes a trip in a bosun's chair during effort-making trials off the California coast. Johnson is more concerned with the present than the future, but he makes it with help from willing hands. The films show the first operational jet plane landings and takeoffs. And there's the signal for the first to take off. Squadron Commander Evan Oran flies the first FJ-1 Fury off the Boxer's deck. He's followed by the Squadron Executive Officer, Commander Robert Elder. It's a major step in keeping the Navy at top efficiency. 2 squadrons are now changing over to jet fighters, which can be catapulted for quick takeoff. Up go the barriers. The 600-mile-per-hour planes approach for landing. On a signal from the landing signal officer, Commander Oren cuts his engine and drops down for a perfect landing in the arresting gear. Our first line of defense keeps abreast of troubled times.
Dick Button, youthful American figure skating champ, demonstrates his wizardry in Canada. Before 14,000 spectators in Toronto, the young Olympic title holder whirls through the breathtaking routine which brought him fame at St. Moritz. Dick, who hails from Englewood, New Jersey, is a perfectionist on the flashing blades, a young man of ineffable grace. The popular and poised Mr. Button proves a big hit with skating fans at the Rotary Club's Colorful Ice Review. A friendly neighbor and talented performer, he is co-star of the review with Canada's very own Barbara Ann Scott, queen of them all. Fame is already hers, and fortune awaits her decision. Miss Scott's presentation here is perhaps her last public appearance as an amateur. The professional world beckons to the talent and the magnetic drawing power of this fabulous young lady of the ice. Queen of the ice, Barbara Ann Scott. The muscle men, those fellas with what a build, assemble in Los Angeles for the Mr. America contest. Joe DiPietro, a shorty in this game, manages to throw plenty of weight around. He's short, but oh my. And before long, they pick a winner. A handsome, hefty hunk of guy named George Eiferman of Santa Monica. Girls, ain't he just a boon. Here are Muscles by George, 5'8", blue-eyed, blonde, 22, a war veteran. Care for any more statistics? There he is, Mr. America.
With all the traditional fanfare, the grand old party meets in Philadelphia to select a leader. The Republican keynote is, let's toss those Democrats out of the White House. And every state in the Union sends its determined delegates. Vandenberg supporters display a cryptic slogan as the great political circus goes into full swing. The GOP emblem in the flesh is paraded by Taft followers who are completely confident of his nomination by the convention. As baby Eva searches for a place to like, she meets a cousin several times removed. Rooms are at a premium, and Eva carries her trunk wearily from hotel to hotel, only to be met with the same reply. Sometimes you meet an impartial miss who bets on the field, just so long as it's a Republican. The big show is hot news. Out on a limb is a Stassen supporter. The candidates attend in droves, with the Dewey headquarters buzzing as Governor and Mrs. Dewey arrive. He's the top favorite, with plenty of delegates pledged for the first ballot. Governor Earl Warren and his family arrive from California. And from Ohio comes Senator Robert Taft, full of his usual spunk. Also ready for the fray is Harold E. Stassen of Minnesota, and the stage is set for the big show itself. The floor of the convention hall is a seething mass of delegates, and the gathering is well covered for news. From all over they come, north, south, east, west, yes, even the Wild West.
The convention will now come to order.
The Republicans convene this time with high hopes for success in nominating a man the voters will welcome.
An epic in diamond history occurs at Yankee Stadium, New York. Baseball fandom sees stars of the famous team of 1923 gather for a silver jubilee. Red Ralph and Bill Dickey are among the greats, as are Lefty Gomez and another old-timer, Mark Koenig. Back again at third base is Joey Sewell, and in there still pitching is Wilcie Moore.
You recall Bump Hadley and others of those fabulous days, including Tom Zachary, off whom the mighty Babe garnered a 60th fence buster. Then the Sultan of Squat himself, Babe Ruth, the one and only Bambino, who gets a tremendous ovation from the assembled customers. Back in the home that Ruth built, wearing his own number 3, which is now retired to baseball's Hall of Fame, the Babe shows how it was done to the plaudits of his multitude of devoted fans. $43,000 customers are out at Belmont Park, and there's a reason. Citation with Eddie Arcaro up. They're rated at 1 to 5 to cop the Belmont Stakes against 7 other thoroughbreds in the $117,000 Classic. And they're off. Citation stumbling as he breaks out of the gate, but then settling down for the long mile-and-a-half grind. A long shot by the name of Faraway stays right with the Calumet Farms entry into the backstretch, but then Citation does what's expected of it. In the home stretch, it's all over but the statistics. Yes, he's mighty impressive. Even in slow motion, this fleet winner of the Derby, the Preakness, and now the Belmont Stakes. That makes it the Triple Crown. Add 77 grand to Citation's earnings, boosting them well above the $500,000 mark. Do, re, mi, and watch that winning stride. A magnificent victory. It's all Citation, who equals Count Fleet's brilliant time set in 1943. It's the second Triple Crown for Calumet Farms and the second for Eddie Arcaro, who rode to victory on Whirlaway 7 years ago. And now it's over, and racing history repeats itself. Citation by 6 lengths plus. The fans give a great colt and a great jockey a great big hand as they ride to the winner's circle. They've brought home a great slice of bacon. Eddie says, Citation's the greatest horse I've ever seen. Well, sounds like horse sense to me.
It's another Philadelphia story, but this time the cast is solidly Democratic, and the city plays host to a donkey, who holds sway where a short time ago an elephant held forth. He is the symbol under which 1,234 delegates gather. Hopes run high around the headquarters for General Eisenhower, the man beloved by all America, and frantic efforts are made on his behalf. But the general said no, and emphatically. So the biggest boom of the convention collapses. Anti-Truman forces then turned to Supreme Court Justice Douglas as James Roosevelt, arriving with the California delegation, spearheads the drive. For a time, the movement toward Mr. Douglas appears to gain momentum, but again, the answer is no, and definitely. However, opposition to the president is not dead, and liberal Democrats rally around Senator Pepper of Florida as his hat goes in the ring. Fighting Mr. Truman's nomination to the last ditch are the Southern Democrats, whose caucus chooses Governor Blaney of Arkansas. As the convention plot begins to seize, President Truman's supporters get busy, and members of his board of strategy talk it over. Convention Hall, for the second time in a few weeks, is the scene of a major party conclave. The curtain rises on a Democratic convention that finds the party far from united. Although President Truman looms as an overwhelming favorite for the nomination as standard-bearer, dissension is rife in the ranks as delegates settle down to business. Partisans of the president claim more than enough votes to nominate him on the first ballot. Political machine strength is represented by Kelly of Chicago and Haig of Jersey City. And Senator Conley of Texas is just as warm as the rest, as the temperature soars to 90 with humidity to match. With the presidential nomination an almost foregone conclusion, wilting delegates concentrate on the choice of a vice presidential candidate. Senator Barkley, a likely running mate, delivers the keynote address.
The Republican nominee has announced with characteristic finality that he proposes to sweep from the government at Washington the cobwebs as he swept them from Albany following long tenure of Democratic administration. I am not an expert in cobwebs, but if my memory does not betray me, when the Democratic Party took over the government 16 years ago, even the spiders were too weak from starvation to weave or spin a cobweb in any department of the government of the United States.
Still to come on Year by Year, a command performance for the Queen with Vivian Leigh and Laurence Olivier, and the most popular films of 1948. In 1948, the most popular films were Sorry, Wrong Number, starring Barbara Stanwyck, I Remember Mama with Irene Dunn, and The Treasure of Sierra Madre, which starred Humphrey Bogart.
Queen Elizabeth attends a command performance of motion picture stars in London. J. Arthur Rank, international motion picture figure, plays a stellar role in this film event of the season. And Princess Margaret Rose receives homage from a somewhat bewildered admirer. Shining among the stars is Vivian Leigh, who has a gracious meeting with Her Majesty, as does her husband, Sir Laurence Olivier, bright luminary of the English and American screen. The Queen greets Myrna Loy and Margaret Lockwood. Altogether, a gala occasion in the motion picture and social whirl around the globe. But London doesn't stand alone as a center of attraction in the film world. Miss Alaska, otherwise Tiana, arrives in Hollywood to make her screen debut in Universal International's forthcoming Arctic Manhunt. This Eskimo pretty is the first of the far northern lassies to aspire to a top motion picture role. We've been missing something, and also in Southern California, we come across a bevy of beauties vying for the title Helen of Troy. The winner is Charlene Hardy, who is crowned queen by Donald O'Connor, ambassador of beauty in Universal's search for talent among our major universities. It's homecoming week at Southern Cal, and it looks like old home week for Donald. Chosen for a screen test, Charlene does a double take, which preserves O'Connor's honor.
At Evanston, Illinois, sporting fans are on hand for the finals in the Olympic track and field trials. Henry Kaufman is over in the high jump, followed by Dwight Edelman of Illinois. Edelman wins a berth on the Olympic team, along with George Stanich of Los Angeles, who jumped 6 feet 8 1/4 inches. In the pole vault, former Olympic champ Earl Meadows goes up and over, but fails to qualify for the American squad. Assured of a spot on the team is Bob Richards of the Illinois Athletic Club. Harry Cooper of Minnesota has a pole snap under him, but he escapes without injury. High man in the trials is Dick Borkham of New Hampshire. In the finals of the 100-meter sprint, there's a surprise upset. Barney Ewell, veteran of 12 years of competition, pulls ahead of the favorite Nell Patton. The one-time Penn State ace stays out front to win in 10-2, equaling the world record. Patton is second, and Harrison Dillard, who loses out in his hurdles try, is third. Old Barney will be in there sprinting. Now for the 110-meter hurdle. Dillard, who won the first heat and appeared to be a virtual cinch to win the finals, lost his stride and failed to finish in a dramatic turn of events. Bill Porter of Northwestern comes in first, assuring himself of a ticket to London this summer.
The fish get a good look at the newest in bathing costumes and go for them hook, line, and sinker. Some of these Catalina swimsuits are Schiaparelli designs, and all of them are designed to make bathing and sunbathing a pleasure. Miss America BD Shop models the official Miss America suit for 1949. And then we have the convertible style. Conventional in the original, they tie up to expose as much epidermis as possible to the rays of old sol. Can you try that? Well, it's an election year, and we know where our vote goes.
Things happen fast and happen when Rogers Pass is intercepted by Marikich of Georgia, and visiting North Carolina Tar Heels find Marikich a tough customer. In fact, they barely catch a glimpse of the fleet Georgia back as he romps 80 yards to score before 45,000 football fanciers.
Georgia led until the third period when Justice steps in. Charlie Justice, that is, here passing to Powell to set up the first Tar Heel touchdown. Who scored that first touchdown? Why, Charlie Justice, whose gridiron name is Choo-Choo. Remember that name. They see more of this fella Justice, number 22. This time, Choo-Choo streamlines his way through the center for his second tally, but not his last, and the last is the best. Gary of the Bulldogs kicks, and under it is the Asheville Flash. There goes Choo-Choo, getting up steam for the thrill play of the afternoon. This is an express run, no stop. North Carolina wins 21-14. That's Justice for you.
Still to come on Year by Year, Whitaker Chambers, Richard Nixon, and the front page news of 1948.
Log on at www.historychannel.com. It's where the past comes alive.
The front page news in 1948, Mahatma Gandhi is assassinated. Apartheid becomes law in South Africa, and 2.5 tons of food and coal are airlifted into Berlin.
Robert Stripling, counsel for the Un-American Affairs Committee, and Congressman Nixon examined microfilms of top State Department documents found on the farm of Whitaker Chambers, self-confessed one-time communist spy. In the latest sensational turn of the Red Espionage probe, the Maryland farm of the magazine editor becomes the focus of attention. Of particular interest is the pumpkin patch, which provides the hiding place for the crucial document. Nestling innocently in the patch is this pumpkin, which gave concealment to the filmed copies of the paper. Chambers says he adopted this ruse to foil his commie associate of 1937. Where did he get the document? The country is waiting for Mr. Chambers to point the finger. In Washington, the Air Force marks its first birthday. General Hoyt Vandenberg tells Air Secretary Symington of the progress and the big news made by our expanding aerial arm during the year.
Mr. Secretary, your confidence in the United States Air Force is being justified. It is now an organization of more than 400,000 trained men and women. It has been organized to provide the best possible air defense of the United States. In maintaining the airlift to Berlin, which provides that city of 2.5 million people with food, fuel, and necessary supplies, our airmen are showing the world what the United States Air Force can do in making air power a real force for peace.
In Seattle, providing the punctuation for General Vandenberg's words, B-50 Superforts take shape on the Boeing assembly line. Over 200 are under construction and additional hundreds are planned. The 50, successor to the B-29 of Tokyo fame, will serve as the standard long-range bomber of the Air Force. Though similar in general design, it is faster and capable of longer range and heavier hitting power. Maximum load, 10 tons. Now begin test flights for the sleek new bombers. Before being delivered to the Air Forces, they must prove their wings. And here they do, against the scenic backdrop of Cascade Mountain. Air power is peace power. Beauty queens float in on a high tide of multitude to vie for the title of Miss America of 1948. Chosen in regional contests, they converge on Atlantic City in a dazzling display of luscious curves and lovely faces. From across the border comes a delegate that's all charm. And far-off island groups send ambassadors of beauty, make up a total of 54 concessions for the crowd. Nothing is ever perfect, however. There's always one in a barrel full of pippins. Her mother called this one the apple of her eye, and it must have spoiled her. The finals bring out the cream of the crop, and it's mighty tough going trying to select the winner. There's one thing sure, the Georgia peach crop turned out well this year, and the Wild West is truly wild over its harvest of beauty.
being crowned by last year's winner, Barbara Jo Walker, is Beatrice Bella Shop of Minnesota. Hail to the new Miss America.
President Truman reaches Charleston, West Virginia in his cross-country campaign for re-election. In a major speech before returning to Washington, the president hailed the past record of the Democratic Party.
Today, the Democratic Party is the party of the American people. It was the party of the people under Jefferson and Jackson. It was the party of the people under Wilson and Franklin Roosevelt. Today, we of the Democratic Party express the will of the American people to move forward under liberty, yielding neither to communism nor to reaction. Today, the Democratic Party stands before the country a living force for peace and freedom. Today, we are rallying our forces for the greatest struggle in our history. In that struggle, I ask your support.
Young Democrats switch political speeds in midstream as the GOP nominee, Governor Thomas E. Dewey, cuts a wide swath through Missouri and Kansas. With Mrs. Dewey, he's greeted by voters who listen intently to his plea to rally round the Republican banner. In the president's home state, Mr. Dewey lauded the present Congress and denounced his opponent in no uncertain terms. As election time draws closer, the tempo of the campaign begins to take on a faster political beat.
France's labor troubles multiply as trade unions stage a general strike that completely paralyzes Paris. All forms of transportation come to a halt as workers, after a long feud with the government policy of wage control, reject an offered 15% wage boost. Gay Paris carries its lunch and becomes a city of pedestrians. Every form of transportation is pressed into use during the day-long strike. A strike fomented by communists and joined by all ranks of French labor. These are the kind of tie-ups that have kept French governments in turmoil since the war. Violence begins to take form as striking demonstrators parade along the boulevards, and the police take a hand. The struggle becomes so violent that reserves are called in. Red pamphlet distributors get the bums rush, and some demonstrators get a taste of the nightstick. France is fighting its battle against the fifth column.
We're back at Braves Field in Boston for the sixth game of the World Series. Yes, and the umpires are back on the job, too. It's the land of free speech and baseball and World Series excitement. 40,000 fans, predominantly Braves fans, count on pitcher Bill Boiselle to keep Boston in the race for the series. Cleveland's Bob Lemon, winner of the second game, is on the mound. And today's game may tell the story. With one on in the third, Boudreaux takes aim. It's a sharp fly inside the right field line that Boston can't handle. Mitchell starts home with the first run of the game. And one run can be awfully big in this series, which the Indians lead 3-2. In the fourth, the Braves' Mike McCormick steps up. Right down the middle, and here comes Bob Elliott, whose 2 homers aided Boston in its whopping 11-5 victory in the 5th game at Cleveland. Local boosters find cause for hope in a 1-1 ball game. But in the 6th, Joe Gordon is on the warpath. Gone over the left field wall. A circuit count for Cleveland's Flash Gordon, and he makes a leisurely tour of the bases, putting the Tribe ahead a second time in this series classic that brought new records in crowds, gate receipts, and thrills, and perhaps the beginning of the end. Still the 6th, Thurman Tucker on third, and at the plate, Tim Hegan. It's a boundary to Elliott, but in Boston's try for a double play, Tucker scores when the ball is dropped. In the eighth, with Spahn pitching for the Braves, Robinson finds a single to right field, and coming home with the Indians' fourth run of the game is Ken Keltner. Boston hopes sag to a new low ebb. Here's a neat Boston double play with Tucker caught between third and home. Bill Salkeld writes finish to the act during a slam bang encounter, and it retires the side, and the score 4-1 for Cleveland. The Braves eighth. The bases loaded. Elliott, Torgerson, and Holmes, and only one man out. You could hear a bean drop in Boston. That's all for Lemon. He's through. Squeezed out. Gene Bearden, hero of the third game, takes up the cudgels for the Tribe. Clint Knatzer is up. That brings them to their feet. Knatzer's long fly to center produces a bit of speed in Tommy Holmes, and a run for Boston. Now it's a 4-2 ball game, and another pinch hitter comes up. Phil Macy, and the Braves aren't through yet. They keep coming back. And Torgerson heads for the payoff plate. After the fifth game, can you blame the Boston fans if they see another 6-run inning coming up? Then comes the fateful ninth, with Bearden nursing that one-run lead. The hush descends on Braves Field. Christie's attempted sacrifice backfires. Egan grabs it, takes to first, and Stanky is out on a double play. 2 down, 1 to go. Tommy Holmes out. It's a long fly ball to Kennedy, who snags it backed up against the left field wall. That's all. It's all over. But the congratulations between Boudreau and Bearden and the Cleveland Indians. They win the series 4-2. Their first series victory since 1920. The American League champs give vent to their feelings, and who can blame them? They won a great series. They beat a great National League team.
When Year by Year returns, one of the most stunning election upsets of all time. Truman defeats Dewey in 1948. Stay with us. Welcome back to Year by Year. On November 2nd, 1948, President Harry S. Truman went to bed not knowing whether or not he'd be employed for the next 4 years. Governor Thomas Dewey of New York thought he'd have a new job and would be moving to Washington. But when the votes were counted, Truman woke up as president, and Dewey had to change his plans. Join us now as we look at the election of 1948.
The political miracle of the century begins to take form as millions of Americans go to the polls to elect a president. With Thomas E. Dewey, Republican nominee, a heavy favorite on all counts, the nation is expecting a smashing GOP victory. In the smallest hamlet and in the teeming reaches of New York City, the electorate exercises its franchise to choose a leader in the democratic manner. Mr. and Mrs. Dewey arrive to cast their ballots in Manhattan. The governor is full of confidence, facing a horde of photographers clustered on every available perch to record this historic event. The popular governor of New York and former gang nemesis makes his choice and then gets ready to listen to the return. President Truman is no less confident as he arrives to vote in Independence, Missouri. After a record campaign across the nation, he comes home to ballot, accompanied by his staunchest supporters, his daughter Margaret and Mrs. Truman. His human appeal and sincere desire for world peace starts an avalanche of Democratic votes that sweep him to victory, along with the sympathetic majority in both houses of Congress. His campaign attack on the 80th Congress was one of the high points of his tour. Back in South Salem, New York, Mr. and Mrs. Henry Wallace spearhead the Progressive Party drive that forecast 10 million votes. The final count was short of 1 million. At the courthouse in Edgefield, South Carolina, Governor Thurman, states' rights nominee, votes, accompanied by his wife. This was the splinter party that broke the usually solid Democratic Southern bloc. The smashing upset victory finds radio and press facilities functioning in high gear with Universal's Ed Herlihy and his colleague, yours truly, Ben Grauer, on the broadcast front. Throughout the night, the stunning returns continue to confirm the Truman victory. The president carrying 28 states with 304 electoral votes, to Dewey's 16 states and 189, not counting the sleeper votes.
suspense is over. Truman wins with a popular vote of 21,462,000 to his Republican opponent's 19,862,000. With Jim Farley and Howard McGrath celebrating, Governor Dewey sends a traditional telegram of congratulations to an opponent who fought an uphill battle waged among the grassroots. And this is his victory pledge. All my efforts will be devoted to the cause of peace in the world and the prosperity of our people here at home. Democracy has spoken again, and as Washington prepares for another inaugural, America takes stock of the man who waged an almost single-handed fight against Republican opposition as well as a divided party. In a world of turmoil, the people have exercised their inalienable rights. They've made their choice, and their choice is Harry S. Truman. An aerial view of the Queen Mary, high and dry in dry dock at Southampton, England. Britain's famed luxury liner is having her face lifted during a regular periodic overhaul. Every queen must have her day at the beauty parlor, and here's a rare opportunity to gauge the tremendous size of the floating monarch which brings vital commerce to England. Big all the way. Big ship, big job.
The battle for the city of Suzhou is joined. Less than 180 miles from the capital, Nanking, nationalist forces dig in for a losing fight. Among them is Colonel Chang Wei-ku, second son of the Generalissimo, who commands an armored unit. The 400,000 nationalists are armed largely with American weapons, and 105-millimeter guns open a barrage. 400,000 nationalists put up a last-ditch fight against overwhelming red numbers. 210,000 communists are dead or wounded in the battle, while some of the 50,000 nationalist wounded are evacuated by air to rear areas. More than 3,000 red troops are captured with their arms during the struggle, many of the weapons being of Japanese origin. Despite the horde of communist captives taken, the city falls to the red. With Nanking in peril, Madam Chiang Kai-shek arrives at Leesburg, Virginia, as the guest of Mrs. George Marshall. Her country's back to the wall. Madam Chiang is in this country to make a last-minute appeal for help to her country. One of her objectives is to secure the advisory services of General MacArthur. She greets America.
I wish to express my appreciation for the interest and sympathy shown to my country by our American friends. I'm happy to be here in the historic and hospitable home of my good friends, General and Mrs. Marshall.
Europe has some strange customs, and one of the customs is stopping at the customs. Even St. Nick has to halt at the border to declare his bounty. One would think that genial Santa Claus would be immune to international difficulties, but no, the gay holiday spirit seems to be lacking in the stern guardians of the line which marks the entrance to Holland. This time it's a Horace Claus. In this country, he's known as the charitable bishop. You see, Christmas celebrations are a bit different in Holland. Santa arrives December 5th, and he pauses blithely to give the nod to the sentinels at the barrier in order to get his visa okay for Yuletide entry. So when you're opening your stocking presents this Christmas tide, just think of the difficulties jolly old St. Nick has delivering the same. Well, hey, nonny and yoicks, here he goes on his rural free delivery to all happy little girls and boys everywhere. Merry Christmas to you all.
7 weeks after four-power rule in Berlin came to an end, the Russians hauled down their flag before the Kommandantura, symbolizing a complete rupture of relations and dividing the German capital into two armed camps. The deserted office of Soviet General Kotikov offers more mute evidence of the break. But three flags remain, the American, French, and British. And there they will stay, despite Soviet pressure. With a never-ending display of force, German communists parade through Potsdamer Platz.
carrying banners which sing the hymn of hate against the Western powers, with particular attention to the United States. With tension mounting, police take a hand, and arrests are followed by small-scale riots. Violence is at every hand. While rumors of communist seizure of the city fly thick and fast, a square in the British sector is designated for a meeting of Germans of the Western Zone. On 2 occasions, elected representatives of municipal governments find their meeting places usurped by red mobs and postpone their session, as Berliners await the outcome of the War of Words. However, citizens of the Western section stand firm, and a packed meeting of Social Democrats gathers to play its part in the political battle. High point of the meeting is Franz Neumann's ringing defiance of red domination. With the battered Reichstag as a backdrop, Berlin citizens again gather more than 200,000 strong to hear reassurances that Berlin will be held at all costs.
In 1948, the Red Menace was an increasingly hot topic of conversation. Overseas, the U.S. responded to the Berlin blockade by airlifting in tons of food and fuel. At home, the House Un-American Activities Committee reported that the Truman administration was riddled with communists and communist sympathizers. The president responded by calling it the worst Congress in history. Clearly, the Cold War had 2 fronts in 1948, the borders of Western Europe and the aisles of the U.S. Congress. This has been Year by Year. I'm Karen Stone for the History Channel.
And now a History Channel news fact.
Timeline, 1849. Take me out to the ball game. Hoboken, New Jersey is the site for the first official baseball game. Stay tuned for more news later on the History Channel.